Good evening, everyone. First of all, thank you for coming in large numbers for this event. As always, large number of new faces. As a Ferguson alumni, good to come back here. Very different memories of this amphi when I was a student. There are many ex-students here, sitting here, which is contemporaries of our guest today, Prahlad. I think the earliest one is 1961 batch, so many of you may not have been born as well, including me. And then somebody could be as early as last year and current students as well. So my name is Advait Kurlekar. My colleague here is Eklavya Malhotra, whom you'll hear very soon. We are from a company called Apohan Management Consultants, and we've been organizing this session called Between the Lines for last couple of years now. This for people who have coming here for the first time, quick introduction to what this format is. So every month we identify a book that has been recently published and we believe it's a good book to read. And Eklavya presents a summary of that book. We all know that we assume that he's read the book. But we also are great fans of his summarization, so we'll see that shortly. And then depending on the book, normally we invite people from the industry and I try and moderate a panel discussion on the topic. As some of our regular guests are here, you would know that recent months we are on a, what they say, we're on a ball. And therefore we've been very lucky and fortunate to get great guests with their books. And therefore we've done away with the panel discussion, including today. So today's book, of course, is by autobiographical book by Prahlad Kakkar, and I'll formally introduce him. Actually, it doesn't need an introduction, but I'll come back again. And then it's just a chat conversation with him, including some audience questions. So this session today, and this session is every month. It's a free and open for all session for people who don't know. And some of you would know now that this is our 109th such session. So we've been doing this for some time. Thank you, thank you. So without much ado, let me call Eklavya to tell us what this book is all about. He's also going to be unapologetic about his summary. So Eklavya, all yours.
Good evening, everyone. You know, they always say you should never meet your heroes in person. And that's why we did not invite Piyush Pandey. We settled for Prahlad Kakkar. Prasoon was also unavailable. So you were number 3 on our speed dial list, Prahlad. No, thank you so much. Thank you, first of all, for agreeing to our invitation. And thank you so much to Mithali also, because clearly she's the driving force behind this massive book that you have written. Whipping force. Oh, wow. Okay, so we've already started with the Hunter Valley references. Now, as I think all of you would have gathered by now, Prahlad is also an alum of Ferguson College, as is Advait, me included, and I'm sure many more of us who are here in the audience today. The only difference is that for most of us, when we say that an event is going to take place at the Ferguson Amphitheatre, we immediately recognize what structure we're talking about. We know it's the Heritage Building. We know it's next to the admin block. For Prahlad, we had to specifically explain to him how many meters away it is from the ladies' hostel. So what's going to happen over here is one of two things. By the end of today's evening, this entire next 1.5 to 2 hours, either Advait and I are going to get cancelled, as is popularly known today, or each of you is going to go back home with a copy of Prahlad's book and fawn over it the way we have been doing over the last few months. Because this book is nothing but an absolute masterclass, not just in advertising, but on life itself. And Prahlad, as I'm sure most of us would agree, is a man who wears many hats. He's carrying one of those today, but he's a man of varied interests. And I would also say he's a man who loves many a thing, whether it's his passion for storytelling, advertising, restaurants, cooking, cigars, wine connoisseur, and so many other things. And hopefully Mithali also is included somewhere in that list. Otherwise, it's going to be a very uncomfortable evening today. But what's also very true about Prahlad is that if you just sort of go a bit behind the exterior which we all love and adore so much, behind that is a man who's clearly done in the hard yards to get to where he is today. The word ad guru gets thrown about very liberally when we talk about someone like Prahlad, but he's truly earned that sobriquet, as he's also earned this moniker of ad man, madman. So the madness and the genius both lie within the same man. And if you want to understand how he's actually made it in this industry, or rather I would say how he's actually created this industry, because that's what he has probably rightfully done and can earn the credit for that, you need to pick up a copy of this book and ignore the fact that it's 500 pages long and give it a read. Because there are few better things that you can do than indulge in this absolute brilliant storytelling, which is so hilarious that at oftentimes you'll have to just keep the book down because you'll want to just visualize the incident or anecdote which he's retelling in the book and laugh over it, or other times, like someone like myself, you'll have to take out the dictionary and then marvel at his use of the English language. It's almost baffling why he turned to film production and direction rather than becoming a copywriter, because he could have absolutely killed it over there also. Now, as most books do, this book also begins with a meet cute kind of a story. Boy meets girl, girl meets boy, girl says, show me yours and I'll show you mine. Now you know why I said we're going to get cancelled before the evening is over. Now, to put it into context, the boy is our very own Prahlad Kakkar, aged 4.5 years old, and the girl is none other than Princess Kumkum, 5 years old. So yeah, she's got age on him. I think Prahlad has a fascination for slightly older women from a very, very young age. And all of this takes place in a kindergarten at the famed Lodi Road area in Delhi. So for those of you who are from Delhi like myself, yeah, Lodi Road is a very big deal. Think of Koregaon Park and just multiply that by 100,000 diplomats and bureaucrats. And that's what Lodi Road is all about. So in those verdant green outdoors, this little girl, whose mother actually runs this kindergarten, comes over to Prahlad and his friend, I think Naveen, if I'm not mistaken, and says to them that show me yours and I'll show you mine, quite literally. Prahlad, of course, being the gentleman that he was from a very young age, wanted to have nothing to do with it and politely told her to go where the sun does not shine. But she persisted and started throwing tantrums. So then first Naveen obliged, and then maybe not being very happy with what was on display, she turned over to Lothario himself, or may I call him Robin now that we are in Ferguson College. She turns over to him and says, Prahlad, you go next. Now Prahlad is a man who is obviously, he succumbs easily to a woman's charms, and he proceeds to do the unthinkable. And then when he asks for a fair exchange in return, she runs away to her mother, who is the principal of this kindergarten. My God, what kindergartens they had, Prahlad. I wish I was a baby once again. Growing up in Punjab, I never thought that when I get to Delhi, this is what will be in store for me. And then she goes over to her mother and starts crying. Her mother is convinced that something is wrong, something that these boys must have done, asks her daughter, what happened? What's wrong with you? And she says, I will not transliterate what she exactly said, but suffice to say that she says to her mother that I want what Prahlad has. He did not have the long hair which we know him for now. He did not have that easy wit about him for which he is so well known. He certainly did not have this charming magnetic personality that draws all of us towards him. So God alone knows what she was talking about. But that is when Prahlad got rusticated from the kindergarten at the age of 4.5 years old. And then begins, now again you might think that this is the kind of story which shapes a boy into a man, quite literally and figuratively. But no, this only starts a long line of rustications, which initially, it's like they say that some people are born great, some have greatness thrust upon them. So initially, Prahlad was getting rusticated from multiple institutions. And then later on, I believe he was trying to engineer scenarios and situations where he could get thrown out of certain establishments and institutions. And the story continues, and it takes him to Sainik School in Haryana, I think the first Sainik school which was established in the country, where, of course, he discovers that there's a Haryanvi Jat inside him, as is probably inside all of us who come from that part of the country. And that's when, again, he gets into some of those important life lessons in the formative years. And that's something which has been so beautifully and articulately described for those of us who are not from that era. And yeah, as you can make out, Prahlad has certainly seen quite a few moons and suns. So again, in those days, in the 1950s and 60s, he takes us through this journey of firstly Dehradun, where he spends his initial years in boarding school over there. And then again takes us to Haryana, where he gets into the Sainik School. And over there, he's basically thrust into a world which is obviously very alien to somebody who was an English-speaking urban or urbane child like him. And over there also, he's sort of pushed into the more manly affairs of life. So he gets into boxing, football, sports, and everything else. And that's again where the life lessons start coming in aplenty. Like, for instance, if you read some of the things which he has mentioned about his early foray into boxing, you can make out that it was totally against his will. I mean, at the end of the day, how many of us would want to get punched or pulverized in front of an entire school full of young kids, that too boys? Nobody would really enjoy that. But because he is forced into that, because he's forced to get into certain things which push him out of the comfort zone, it also lends a certain resilience to him. It lends that certain foresight to him where he's able to understand and perceive situations probably a split second faster than most other people or most other contemporaries of his. And if you look at it, again, I would again urge you that behind all of the tomfoolery and everything else that we know Prahlad for, lies a very astute marketing brain. He understands the pulse of India like probably no other marketeer even today does. And that is what has stemmed him apart from all of the other illustrious contemporaries during his day and age. And even now, he continues to inspire us simply because of some of these early lessons which he has probably imbibed from a very young age. And also the advice which he's obviously taken very seriously. Like when the chief of staff sits you down and tells you that even though you have a passion for military studies and warfare, and you really want to get into the armed forces, he's advised quite rightly that don't get into the armed forces because you would be extremely successful during wartime because you are somebody who's a troublemaker and you're somebody who is basically looking to solve problems. But chances are that right now, since the Indo-China, Indo-Pak wars have completed, chances are that we're going to enter a period of elongated peacetime. And in peacetime, you're going to be court-martialed in a few years from now. So it's better that you get out of this dream of getting into the armed forces and find something which is more suitable to your skill sets. And those skill sets really come to the fore when he stumbles again, I think one of the most beautiful things about this book is how many times Prahlad has stumbled into something which then ends up changing or shaping his life forever. And also the kind of people that he interacts and meets with, people who are in their own quest for greatness, have stopped to touch his life for a few fleeting moments and led him to that final answer of who he is, where he is going, and what is going to take him there. Many people have touched his life, and Prahlad himself has rightfully touched many people's wives. Sorry, I meant lives. And he's also created legends, the kind that we are grateful to him for. Can you imagine people of my age, which is not saying much, but we would have never had Raveena Tandon back in the 90s if it wasn't for Prahlad turning her away from being his production assistant and trying her hand at modeling and then later into films. Imagine what your childhood would have been like. I shudder to think of it. Or the fact that, again, people of my age would have never gotten to see those Kingfisher models in all of their prime, if that's the word, Prahlad agrees, had it not been for him inspiring a young Atul Kasbekar to take up the path of being a photographer, and look where that got us. And that's something which again comes out through and through every single chapter, every single page, every single word of this book. How he has created and shaped so many lives simply by doing what he does best, which is leading from the front. And so that's again something which, why he was like, moving from options to options, cities to cities. He comes down to Pune. He's in Ferguson. He sets up probably the world's first dark kitchen, or at least the country's first dark kitchen, right from the boys' hostel over here. And I don't think I will get into the sordid details of what that dark kitchen was serving. I will leave that to Prahlad to elaborate. But suffice to say, it was more than enough to get him chucked out of the hostel also. And then we found him in the by-lanes of Deccan Gymkhana. We found him in the greeny environs of Koregaon Park. You know, we have a lot of Swedish companies over here in Pune, right? We really pride ourselves on having some famous Nordic companies. Most of them probably owe their existence in Pune thanks to Prahlad's early dalliances with a Swede lady, which again, if you want to know more about that, you'll have to pick up the book. Because just as Prahlad has been tickling our imagination and our funny bone for more than 4 or 5 decades now, I will also want to leave you wanting a little bit more rather than disclosing everything that Prahlad has written in his book. So then the book takes us from Pune, it takes us back to Delhi, and why he goes to Delhi for a short reverie is something which I'm sure Advait will want to touch upon when he speaks to Prahlad in a few minutes from now. And then that's where basically eventually when Prahlad decides to enter the job market, so to speak, that's when he stumbles into something else, which is ASP, Advertising and Sales Promotion. One of the older agencies where finally he probably finds his calling. And that's when the book takes a very interesting turn, because then comes the man, the legend himself, Shyam Benegal. Now, I don't know how many of us in this room are even aware of the fact that Shyam Benegal is probably one of the many mentors that Prahlad has had, or as Prahlad would put it, that he's one of the many slaves that Shyam Benegal has enjoyed over the years. And I dare say that if Shyam Benegal were to pick up the phone and ask Prahlad to come and do some job right now also, no questions asked, Prahlad will be there by his side immediately. Because as he himself says, it is not for a slave to ask why, it is for a slave to show up and do what has been told, without any expectations whatsoever. And that slavery is something Prahlad, like they say, game recognizes game. I have been doing that for 15 years with Advait, so I truly understand what you've been through. And that takes us to a very interesting passage of events where, you know, most of us do really sort of, love the entire thing of getting to know what Bollywood was all about behind the scenes. And the book gives us a very detailed sneak peek into that period as well, because that's when Prahlad assisted Shyam Benegal on some of those iconic films like Ankur, Manthan. He also was in the same movie which Indira Gandhi got them to, sort of commissioned for her re-election in the mid-70s. So he's lived through that entire period. And I think what he's earned is not just everything, all the plaudits, all the expertise, all the skills, but he's also earned the rightful ownership of Shabana Azmi's second toe. Which foot? I think, Prahlad, you'll have to help us with that. Left foot. So Shabana Azmi's second toe in the left foot is the property of Mr. Prahlad Kakkar. And nobody else can claim allegiance to that. Because when she had stubbed her toe while working on the movie Ankur, and there were all these other men on the set, and Prahlad was of course the most chivalrous of them all, he was the one who nursed her back to health. And in return, that toe has been forever now become the rightful ownership of Prahlad's. And the book is interspersed with so many anecdotes, so many other such incidents, which are so heartwarming. Like, the discovery of Smita Patil and Prahlad's beautiful relationship with her, and most of the other people who now we recognize as icons in the world of film and advertising, their humble beginnings and their origin stories all come to light in the book. And that's something which, again, is something that we normally don't get a sort of a backseat privilege to witness, but over here we get a chance to go through all that sort of nostalgic period, which really shaped what eventually Prahlad's own firm, Genesis Productions, showcased during the 80s and 90s and the early 2000s with some of the most memorable ad campaigns that we have seen till date. I know there are a lot of students in the room, and most of you may not even know about it, but some of the ad campaigns which you study as part of your marketing courses, all of those have been created by this man sitting over here right in front of us. Whether you talk about Saffola, Maggi, Pepsi, so many other brands, and for people of a certain age and disposition, if you remember Bush 2-in-1 radios, one of the early campaigns that Prahlad worked on. And again, he was not one who would stop at, just taking things lightly and letting them go or finding an easy way out. When it comes to stepping into the lion's den, he always took the front foot forward, and quite literally, he actually made Goofy Pentel stick his own head into a lion's mouth for one of the ad films for Bush 2-in-1 radios. This was back in the late 70s, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And the ad, of course, I mean, you can imagine Mr. Pentel's reaction when Prahlad says that this is a live lion in front of you, now you've got to stick your head into it. And when he refuses, as any sane man would do, our ad man, madman, proceeds to dunk a bottle of rum down his throat so that he's suitably inebriated, and then proceeds to thrust his head into the lion's mouth. If you don't believe me, go and read about it or watch it on YouTube. You'll actually see what I'm talking about. The ad film became so popular that later on, I think after a few months, when the Bush team had again commissioned them to produce the next series of ad films, and Prahlad and team came up with some great ideas featuring Goofy Pentel. One of the ideas was, brilliant idea, I mean, absolutely marketing folklore, that the patriarch of a family is on his deathbed and the children are fighting over who gets what, and he dies just before deciding who gets the Bush 2-in-1. And everybody's just sort of trying to revive him and say, but who gets the Bush 2-in-1? And he says, I'm taking that with me. The next morning, they all go and they try to pitch this idea to Mr. Arun Nanda. Or Arun Nanda was pitching the idea. Yes, Arun Nanda from, I think, Rediffusion was pitching this idea to the Bush family, to the owners. And after watching it stoically, after listening to everything, they just sort of shunted him out of the room and came out and blew their top on him, saying that, do you think this is a joke? When Mr. Nanda asked, what do you mean, what joke? The man replied, the head of the family, don't you know that our father died yesterday night? And since that time, the entire family has split into two factions and everyone is deciding who gets what part of the Bush ownership. And you think this is funny? Now imagine if you want to read more about this and the behind the stories, behind the scenes, all those little nuggets of how these advertising campaigns came about, you really have to pick the book. You owe it to yourself because, these are simple things which when we see on screen, like I was sharing with Mitali a little while earlier, when we watch these ads on screen, they look so shiny, they look so finished, and we think that this is easy. We think that, oh, you know what, it just requires a bit of a sense of humor, a funny bone, and I can also do this. Anybody can do this. But Prahlad has rightly proved that it is skills before thrills. And that's where a simple advertisement, like I don't know how many of you recollect the Sachin ad from I think the mid-90s. It was probably the 96 or the 99 Cricket World Cup. I think it must have been the 99 World Cup. The Sachin ad where there are those bunch of small kids from a village who are playing cricket in the fields, and they all have those Sachin masks. They're all wearing the Sachin face masks. And towards the end of that ad film, I think it was less than 5 seconds, when they realize that they're actually playing with the real Sachin Tendulkar, when he removes his mask and all of them are flabbergasted to see him, and then they all start drinking Pepsi. Now that particular ad film, if you read about how that actually came into being, the kind of opposition that Prahlad faced, because this was his brainchild and they really wanted to go ahead with it, and they faced strict opposition from the client because Pepsi, of course, didn't want to have anything to do with it. At the end of the day, they probably, at that point of time, the bigwigs perceived themselves to be an aspirational brand, to be a brand of certain repute, a brand of certain value, and did not perhaps want to dilute it by seemingly bringing these kids who we tend to usually ignore and not consider as part of our TG. But then comes Prahlad and sort of, when basically that indomitable force decides that he wants to do something, how does he go about getting it done? First, of course, by ensuring that Pepsi comes on board. And then, because Sachin's management team also rejected the idea flatly and refused to even share it with him, Prahlad decided to become a lift man for one entire Sunday, because he used to live in the same building as Sachin in those days, he decided that on a Sunday, sometime or the other, Sachin would want to step out of the house, and Prahlad used to stay on one of the lower floors. So the entire day, he just spent the day in the lift going up and down, waiting for that time when Sachin would decide to step out of the house. And he literally gave him what we today call the elevator pitch. Sachin comes out, gets into the elevator, both of them are going down. By the time they are down in the car park, Sachin has agreed to do the ad. And what we see is one of the most heartwarming, humane advertisements that we have probably associated with a brand like Pepsi. So there are a lot of these anecdotes and a lot more nuggets in the entire book. And of course, the book also takes us through the latter part of Prahlad's career, especially when he discovers his hidden passions of scuba diving and is also thrown into the world of spiritualism. And that's again when a lot of existential questions get answered. And these also make for absolutely riveting reading, because I don't think anybody else can capture their own quest for, again, that very primitive answer, why are we all here, the way Prahlad has managed to capture it in his book. So at the end of the day, I think it's a fair thing to say that this Diwali, what we all ought to do is pick up a copy of the book, spend some time reading it over the next few days, as I'm sure most of us are going on Diwali break. And what I have thought about is that this Diwali, let's say no to crackers and say yes to kakkar. You're not supposed to applaud that. I have just set the expectations and bar so low for the rest of the program that in spite of Prahlad, it can only get progressively better from here. Thank you all so much. I'm Eklavya Malhotra, and over to Advait and Prahlad.
So while we help Prahlad get on stage, I really don't think we need to formally introduce him. We all know by now who he is, and we'll get to know more about his personality. But let me take this opportunity because, Eklavya mentioned about we getting cancelled, so I may not get an opportunity. And that's why let me do the Thanksgiving first. First and foremost, let me thank my friend Rohit Chirajani here from Express Books Service. It is only because of him that I got to connect with Prahlad and he's here. So thank you, Rohit. And as Eklavya mentioned, his books are there for people to buy. I would like to thank IMDR, Shikha and Sanmat for giving us this opportunity to be here in this amphitheater. And thank you both of you for having done that. I would also like to thank Rohan Builders. I would like to thank our gift partners, which is Doubletree Hilton, Fragrance Story. I'll come back to that. But now that Prahlad is on stage, let me get back to what I'm here for. So Prahlad, I don't know where to start, but we are here and equally appropriate for you. Should I call you Prahlad for the next 1 hour, or should I call you Robin?
I think you should call me Robin because I'm in the town which named me Robin. And all my friends here know me as Robin. And all my enemies know me as Robin. That Robin is the enemy, and our Robin is the friend.
So, why were you asked to climb a ladder and clean up something? That's
Well, I came back from my first term from Delhi for my holidays, and some of my friends, and I still don't know who, and I think it was Sid, but they had climbed up to the back of the ladies' hostel during the time it was closed and written in huge letters in whitewash, "Lock up your daughters, Robin's in town." And Mr. Davle was the principal, and he was not amused. So the moment I came back from the thing, he hauled me up and said, "What is this?" So I told him, I said, "I don't know. I was not here. I was in Delhi, and I can prove it because I went to rescue a damsel in distress there, and her relative will tell you I was very much there." So he said, "You'll have to clean it up." I said, "Why?" So he made me climb up on a ladder for 2 days with a bucket of soap water and a sponge to clean the back of the ladies' hostel. Of course, I got to see what the layout was like also, so for future reference.
So, your book is not necessarily in a chronological order, so my questions are also going to be back and forth. So, since you mentioned about coming from Delhi and going back to Delhi kind of thing, Describe us that famous trip from Pune to Delhi and that wedding gift that you gave.
Well, that's quite a story. I, after hanging around desperately, very lukha for about 1 year, at the end of my first year, I met this young Bengali lady, not my wife, but similar. Uh, Manjushri, I think her name was, correct? Yes. And we started sort of liking each other, you know. And in those days, Ferguson College, dating was out of the question. I mean, that was a very big deal. The maximum you could do is meet at the canal. Does the canal still exist? That was where all the couples used to meet. No, not during college, not during where people would know you. They'd pass a chit and say, meet me at the canal at the time. And if she liked you or approved of you, then she would land up with a cycle on the canal and we'd sit there. And I could never make the canal because the first time I went to the canal, I got hay fever because I couldn't handle the Congress grass that was there. It was full of Congress grass. And the pollen of that Congress grass just made me sneeze about 500 times. So that was the end of the date. There was no conversation, there was nothing, it was just sneezing. So I met Manjushri and we sort of looked at each other and smiled across the campus now and then and occasionally stole a couple of words together. But it became sort of known that we were soft on each other. And her sister was also in college. She was in third year, we were in second year by that time. Second year, first year going to second year. And she went and snuck to her parents and said, she's going out with a Lafanga, who's North Indian, not realizing that there was a quarter Maharashtrian Chitpawan. Okay, so he's a North Indian, Haryani, and she's got a soft spot for him. You get out of trouble. Right now, tell her to stop all this nonsense, otherwise she'll be in deep shit. So they did the best thing in their ability, which was to get her married off. So they found a guy for her and everything was arranged, and then she put up a bit of a resistance, I believe. I'm not too sure. This is all hearsay. She put up a bit of resistance and one thing led to another, and then they decided, the hell with it, she's going to get married. And then she sent invitation to everybody. So I'll come back from college, from Delhi. Wipe the stupid lock up your daughter thing behind the ladies' hostel, and I get a postcard which is an invitation to her wedding. Because we're all wondering where Manjushri disappeared because she hasn't come back from a holiday. And I said, oops, another one bites the dust. And then looked at the back of the card and she didn't. Why didn't you contact me during the holidays? Now that, with my vivid imagination, that set the wheels of lots of actions in my head going that she is a reluctant bride. And therefore, like young Lochinvar, who I was very impressed with because I read the poem in college, I would go to her rescue. And all my friends now sitting in the front bench here actually encouraged me and said, yes, you must go and rescue her. Nobody talked about how I'm going to rescue her, what I'm going to do, and what else that I might do after I rescue her, what the hell is going to happen. Because obviously if she was rescued, she would have to be rescued from her family, which means that she wouldn't have a family after that, and then we would be her family, and how would she continue her education, and so on and so on. Nobody gave it a thought. All the thought was, there's this reluctant bride on the mandap, and she has to be taken away from there in good filmy style by saying, ye shaadi nahi hogi.
And you're still in your first year?
My first year, yes. all of 19 years old. Okay. And I rush off to Delhi with no money, nothing. So a friend, Shashi Dalal and me, and two Sikand sisters. They were very bright girls, but they were going back to Delhi for some work. They were from Dholakua. Their father was in the army. And they were traveling back at the same time. So we attached ourselves to them for respectability, so that when the TT came, and if he did catch us, we'd sort of pretend that the tickets got lost. And that they had the tickets and we had the tickets and they all got lost and we all part of the same group. But we hid in the train toilet for 24 hours to avoid the TTs every time they would come on round, and managed to get away with it, traveled without a ticket all the way to Delhi. landed up all disheveled at my house. My mother got a shock of her life because I just left a month earlier for college, and now she had decided with my track record that I'd got rusticated again. And she said, oh no, you got thrown out of college again. I said, no, Mom, I'm not thrown out of college. I've come to rescue a girl. She said, what? She said, what do you mean you come to rescue a girl? I said, yeah, they're marrying her off against her will. And I'm supposedly her boyfriend, so I'm going to rescue her. So she looks at me and says, and then? I said, then what? She says, what are you going to do with her after you rescue her? Because obviously she won't have a home to go to. So I said, I bring her here, now you look after her. So she said, yes, and what about her education? She says, can't you give us both an education? She said, okay, let's see what happens. So we push off, all of us, including the second sisters for respectability, and we go to the Talkatora Gardens where she's getting married, and they have a home there. And she's in Mehndi. Now, I didn't know, I'm not particularly traditional, so I don't know what Mehndi meant. I didn't know that Mehndi, not supposed to see anybody. You're supposed to be locked up in a coterie and with Mehndi, and you're isolated for that whole day. Next day, they get married. So here I am, one day before the marriage, and she's in Mehndi, and we're hanging on the gate. We're trying to convince whoever's there that we come all the way from Pune to see her, and we have to see her. So to avoid a scene, because we were getting rowed and rumbustious about it, they said, okay, you will only see her for 5 minutes. So they let us into this room, and there she was, all coated in haldi, not mehndi, sorry, haldi. In haldi, and looking yellow like jaundice. And she got really surprised that I landed up from nowhere. She said, what are you doing here? I said, I've come to take you away. So she went very silent. And then she's trying to think of something, and I can see her mind working, thinking, how do I get rid of this guy? Because he's going to be a huge embarrassment. Especially if he's going to make as much noise as he's supposed to. And he's sitting here in my house during my haldi and telling me, let's run away. So I could see this clicking going on in her head. And I said, you have a problem. So she said, yes. I said, you don't like the guy? She said, I don't know him. I said, you're very close to your parents? She said, yes. I said, you don't want to let them down because you can't run away one day before the wedding. When everybody from the whole Khandan has arrived, you'll not only be a kalank, they'll be sort of disgraced for the rest of life. Right? She said, yes. So I said, okay, then I'll go back to Pune. Like a good lock-in door, and gave up ground and said, fine, but anyway, it was worth it. It's better to have loved and lost than not to have loved at all. So,
But you gave her a present.
no. Then she insisted I come for dinner the next day where the reception was, where everybody was getting presents and the marriage ceremony was taking place. So I didn't know whether I should go or not, but everybody said we should go out of good form. So landed. By that time, rumors had spread among the entire family and Khandan that there's this guy with a boyfriend who's come all the way from Pune to attend the wedding. God knows what his intentions are, but he seems to have changed his mind halfway through. So the wedding thing took place. We went up to the stage to congratulate her. And I had asked my mother, can I give her a present? Some odd piece of jewelry which you might have lying around. She said, look in the cupboard, there's a lot of silver jewelry lying there. Take anything you want and give it to her. So I found this very pretty necklace. And I wrapped it up in wrapping paper. And I brought it along with me in my pocket. And when I was on the stage, I gave her this package. And she got...
Can I stop you here?
Yes.
Any guesses what that present was?
It was definitely not condoms.
So more guesses to be useful to me.
So she got very excited and she wanted to open the present right there and then. And I was a little embarrassed. I said, no, you do it later and you can see it later. She said, no, I want to see it now. So she opens this package and pulls out this necklace and holds it up for everybody to see. There was this audible gasp from about 200 people who were there. It was a Mangal Sutra. And I didn't know what the hell a Mangal Sutra was. No, I never having seen one. So I was wondering why I was being kicked under the on my shin by both the second sisters and said, "Let's get the hell out of here now." So I said, "No, let's wait for dinner. They've got Machaj Hall and all that, you know." So they're a Bong family, and she kicking me under the table, or not under, on the stage. She said, let's go now." So they grabbed me, they dragged me off the stage, and we ran up to the gate, outside the gate, and I asked them, "Why are we running away?" Say, "You idiot, you're running away. I'm trying to save your life." So I said, "Why would my life be in danger?" He said, "Because you gave her a Mangal Sutra." I said, "What is that?" He said, "Only husbands give Mangal Sutra to their wives." That's what it was. So that was the incident.
That's very good. Okay. On a different note, while reading the book, and of course you mentioned that you've been obviously very good in the English language, and in Ferguson you did that literature and defense studies. Isn't it an odd combination, and what made you sort of?
Well, I did English literature because of my professor for English literature, and it wasn't Mr. Dowley who was the main professor, who was the principal also. But it was a young lady, not so young lady, who was quite famous because she was an author and a poet, and her name was Gauri Deshpande. And not only I was fascinated by her, but I think the whole of Deccan Gymkhana was fascinated by her. Because she was the only lady at my time who was very well endowed. She was 5'8" in height, stunning looking lady, with she used to wear sweaters on top and slacks at the bottom, not a nabadi, which was most popular at that time. And everybody used to be falling out of the balcony looking at her when she was walking up and down, or even in the campus. So I remember the first week of my lecture, there were 35 students who had taken English literature. Most of them were girls, because guys don't take English literature. It's a useless subject. What are they going to do with it? But I took one look at her and I said, I want to do English literature with her. So I attended the class. By the end of the week, 35 students became 300 students, and they didn't belong to this college. There was no place in the classroom. They were from SP College. They even came all the way from Wadia College to attend her lectures. But she was quite instrumental in my love for English, not only literature but poetry especially, which used to teach the poetry.
You took different studies, and the lectures were in Wadia, and I believe those were again not necessarily noble intentions.
Not at all, because the Wadia girls used to wear dresses and they used to talk to guys, and they were far more. Here we are. It was a huge effort to go and talk to a girl. And you never talk to one girl, you talk to a group of them. Because one girl wouldn't talk to you. So she collected all her friends around you. You didn't know who you were talking to actually, because most of the time. So it was impossible to focus on any particular one. But in Wadia College, they were, it was wide open, and all of us in Ferguson used to only go to camp for two reasons: Osho and Wadia College. So half our lectures for military studies were held in Wadia. So you get up 7 in the morning, cycle all the way to Wadia, and present ourselves there, and then hang around the campus for the rest of the day because we were allowed to. Because otherwise we weren't. So, and I met lots of friends in Wadia, I must say, and some very beautiful young ladies.
So, moving on from college life to professional life. Now, as somebody who's done and very proficient in English literature, how come you went on the creative side of advertising and not being a copy or got into journalism for that?
Well, I think copy is as creative as anything, so I wrote a lot of copy even in my time, because I insisted on writing my own scripts most of the time. And sometimes when I didn't like the script, I rewrote them. So I did a lot of writing, but my book is full of little snippets of poetry from all over the place, including Ogden Nash, who I named a cocktail after. Has anybody read Ogden Nash here? Marvelous. So you remember a poem from him about how to engage with a young lady at a bar? He says, candy is dandy, but liquor is quicker. So there are lots of little quotations in my book from all the poetry that I've read, from Shelley to Tennyson to like Mr. Dhawale used to dramatically read a phrase, point a finger to the sky and say, now for a touch of pathos. Quite dramatic.
Now, one of your first almost, so he mentioned about the Pepsi ad. Now, can you take us through the behind the scenes of, there are two components to it, the three components to it, the three main leaders now, which is Amir Khan, the lady who asked for the Pepsi, and then the, hey, I'm Sanjana. Can you take us through that?
Well, the funny thing was that I did a bit of work on some of the smaller brands for Pepsi. I think they were just testing the waters to see whether I'd actually deliver the kind of quality that they wanted. And then they gave us a biggie. And they pulled out a really big ad from America, which had Michael J. Fox in it. And it was called 10G because that was the name of his apartment. It was 10G was the apartment, what you call number. And the commercial known all over the world as 10G. And it's about this young bachelor living in this flat, and a young looking neighbor comes up to him, rings the doorbell and asks him for a Pepsi. And what transpires after that. So they showed us this commercial and it was mind-blowing. It was just a knockout film. And we loved it. And they said, we want you to replicate it in India. So I was in a dilemma. I said, see, if you do it, if you copy this film, everybody's going to know it because it's such a popular film. And everybody, if you do it right, they'll say, "Arey, copycat." And if you do it wrong, they say, what a bunch of assholes, they couldn't even copy it. So it's a no-win situation either way. You don't get any credit for it. So I said, I'll do it on one condition, that I get to Indianize it my way. And I get to cast it my way. Because I said it's very important that the casting is right for people in India to believe that something like this can actually happen. It's a very metro kind of thing, but even in metros, it's very rare to find a single girl living in a PG or a flat next to somebody and ringing a doorbell of a bachelor and saying, can I borrow a Pepsi instead of sugar or milk or whatever everybody else does. So we said we must make it tangible and we must make the guy vulnerable. He can't come across as a chhati pe bal haath mein bandook type of character. Because that is machismo and that's going to turn off all the female drinkers. I said, he has to be vulnerable. He has to be shy. He has to be withdrawn, excited, but at the same time subdued, and very awkward in his own way. So at that time, Amir's first film had just been released. And that was his character in the film. And we said, I told them, I want Amir, and they wanted Shah Rukh. And Shah Rukh was just starting his career. He didn't have a hit at that time. He was just doing Raju Ban Gaya, Gentleman, or whatever else it was. And he had come out of TV and he was very popular in TV, but he hadn't become a film star. So we had a choice between the two. And I insisted on Amir because I said he suits the character because people already accept him, his character as that. I don't have to spend any time on the commercial making him vulnerable because he's already played a vulnerable character who's very popular among everybody because he's a huge hit. Yeah. And what happened was that Amir, after his big hit, wanted 17 lakhs. And Shah Rukh had agreed on 6. And Shah Rukh's contention was very straight. He said, listen, I need 6 lakhs to buy a flat. I'm living as a PG and I'm fed up, I need my own place. I need 6 lakhs to buy a flat, that's all I need. I'll do it for you if you give me 6 lakhs. So to him, there was an addendum. To Amir, he said, I must try, I won't do it for less than 17. So it went on for 3 months. There was negotiation between Pepsi and Amir. And Amir had the upper hand because there is, in my book also, a fact that I found very true in life, which I learned the hard way, which was if you want something really badly, and if you can't walk away from it, you'll never get it. So the person in a negotiation who can get up and walk away is always the winner. Always. So if you want something so badly that you're willing to compromise your entire life for that, because you don't dare walk away because you can't live without it, then you'll never get it. So Amir was willing to walk away. I wasn't. And I forced Pepsi not to be able to. So they agreed to let me cast Amir at 17 lakhs. And he liked the script, by the way. But in those days, it was not a great asset to be a ad film star. Because the Bollywood contention was that usko kaam nahi mil raha, isliye wo ads kar raha hai. So it wasn't a plus plus. It was a minus minus. But Amir had the courage to turn around and say, I like the script, I'll do it. And then came looking for not the first girl, but the second girl. In the film, who was the bombshell who comes on for 3 seconds in the film. And the search was on, and we looked all over the place. And then finally, you know, my wife was working for me at that time, Italy. And she saw this girl who was an architectural student with the son of a friend of hers, who was also in the same college for architecture. And she got one of the girls from my office, to actually go and contact her. And this was Monia Saigal, who went and found her in Kailash Sunnath's office, coming for an audition. And grabbed her and dragged her up to my office, and she was in a pair of torn jeans, the hair tied up in a ponytail, wearing scruffy clothes, and stood there looking awkwardly at me and saying, and they all got, my office was really excited and said, we found her. And I looked at her and I said, who? She said, her. So I said, she's not knockout. She's just normal scruffy student. She said, no, you're not seeing her properly. We'll let her dress up with makeup and only see what she looks like. So we decided to actually put her in a small film for Prudent Mouthwash. And got her to do the whole shebang, the makeup, the hair, the works. And she's supposed to make an entry on a staircase down into the thing. Jalal Aga was the main model. And that was the first time we actually saw Aishwarya the way Aishwarya looks. And the whole set stopped, including the camera. And Jalal was totally out of character. He opened his mouth and couldn't close it for a long time. And we all looked at her and said, wow. And we weren't looking at her for Prudence. We all looked at her and said, wow, she's right for Pepsi. So we video tested her and we sent, and I carried the videotape to Delhi and said, okay, we found the girl. So let's have a look at it. So they said, all clients always expect 3-4 girls, options. Option number 1, option number 2, option number 3. I don't know why they do that, but they do it. So we lined up all of the Pepsi who's who and went to the projection room and showed this video test. They all sat up and said, not bad. And then they waited. So I waited, they waited, we waited. They said, and? I said, and what? They said, who else? So I said, what do you mean, who else? They don't make them in twos. So they were forced to take Aishwarya, of course, very reluctantly, not because she wasn't good enough, but because they weren't given an option. It was like putting a gun to the head. So when that was Aishwarya's first major public appearance, she came out for exactly 3 seconds, and the day after the film released, I got 50,000 phone calls from people who I don't even know from Adam, saying, who is Sanju? Where can I get her number? So her name was Sanju in the film. So everybody named, and we did a census 10 years after the film was released and realized that something like 10% of all girl child who were born at that time after the Pepsi release were named Sanju. Quite amazing.
Amazing. In the shooting, there was some issues, right?
Oh, in the middle of the riot, we were shooting and suddenly the Bombay riots broke out. So we had to, we got marooned in the theatre, in the studio, because in the middle of parade, which was the heart of the riots. And we had to go escorted in a convoy to President's Hotel because nobody could reach home. And we stayed in President's Hotel, courtesy Pepsi. I'll say that for Vibha Rishi. I'll put them all up, don't worry. And after 3 days when the riots subsided slightly, then we got everybody home. And we had to, half the film was left. So it had to come back. We had to come back to, the studio. And Amer and his family refused to let him come back. He said, because it's very dangerous for him. Because he's a part of the minority and the riots against him, and if they found out that he's in the car, they'll burn the car. So I sent Mitali to actually convince him to come, and Mitali was 8 months pregnant. Right, Mit? And she went to the large stomach, and she says, if I can go out, so can you. And he was so embarrassed by that he quietly got to the car and came to the studio to finish the shoot.
With some great security.
That was Amita's time. We were production back there. So Amir's people said they have to have security for him. So we said, yeah, we'll get security. So Amita goes to the police station and said, I want security for one of my stars who's shooting today in the studio. So, are you bloody mad? The city is burning. You want people to give you security? I mean, you try to save the city, just bugger off and immediately leave the station. So we couldn't find anybody. So we said, now what do you do? If he lands up here and says that there's no security, we'll go back. So we got 2 of our extras, got them dressed up like cops and made them rehearse a little bit with a danda in the hand, saying, Hoshar, things like that. And the moment this car came in, they put up an act, badly. He should have recognized that they were not cops and they were bad actors. But anyway, we got away with it. and the shoot was completed.
Going back to your early days in advertising, after reading the book, I realized that you've been, in a way, fortunate to get great friends, I would call them partners in crime in various of your various activities, but also great mentors and seniors who acted as friends, Kamat Mama and all those things. So, how did that happen? I mean, is it because of, how does this mentorship work? How did it work then?
See, I don't think my mentors had a choice with me too much because I was there, large as life and very irreverent from the beginning. And I always thought that I could always escape from my real identity and go back to being Robin. And then nobody would name me. So if you have 2 names, where in 2 places that you live, you can switch between the 2 and be 2 completely different characters. So if you get caught doing something really bad, you can always switch and say, I'm not that person, I'm such and such. At least by default. So that's why I kept the name Robin alive, because whenever I need to run away from Prahlad, I could become Robin. And whenever I needed to, wherever I turned on somebody walking down Jangli Maharaj Road or Deccan Gymkhana or something, that is one of Prahlad progeny that say, the Robin's progeny, they say, I'm not Robin, I'm Prahlad. So there was a huge advantage in that. So, where were we? Sorry.
So my question is, you call Shyam
No, he didn't. No, he was very reluctant mentor, frankly. He came to my Delhi office and I turned around and said, wow, this is my great opportunity to escape from Delhi. So I latched onto his leg like a limpet mine and dragged him myself wherever he went, saying, please, I want to come to Bombay and work with you. And he was really irritated and he said, listen, I don't trust Delhi people because they are all jugadus and you are not welcome in Bombay. You please stay here. But I sort of begged, pleaded, I got my boss to even beg and plead for me because I told him, I said, television is going to be the next big thing since ice cream. And if we don't know anything about it in Delhi, which we don't, then we'll be at a huge disadvantage. So let me go to Bombay and work with Mr. Benegal for 6 months, learn what I can about television, and come back and set up a department for television in the Delhi office. That struck a chord with him. He said, yes, that's a good idea. So he sent me off and said, I'm not going to pay you anything extra. You just go there on your own. So I was getting little less than the PM in the office at that time, something like 450 rupees. And I went to Bombay on my own, lived in Bombay for 6 months on 450 rupees, attended office, which were they didn't care a shit whether I came or not. But I used to follow him around like a little, as I said, like a little puppy and hang on to every word. And he asked me about film. And I didn't have a clue. And he said, you're an illiterate. Why are you with me? You go and read up about film. So I said, no, how can I read up about film when I want to learn how to make films? So by reading how to make films is not going to make me make a film. So he said, why not? So I said, sir, just imagine reading a book and jumping into the deep end of a pool thinking you could swim. You need to get into the shallow end and learn how to swim. So this is shallow end for me. If you throw me into the deep end, I'll drown. So he agreed to sort of let me hang around, really reluctantly. My second mentor was somebody who he gave me. So when he went on a year's leave in a fellowship to America, he got Shama Habibullah, who was then a rising filmmaker, to come and hold fort in my office. So she became my second mentor. And then I gathered mentors as I went along. My first mentor, of course, was my principal in Sainik School, Kunpura. He was Colonel Simeon. And in my opinion, he was the greatest principal I have ever known, or anybody else has ever known in this country. Because in our batch, of the batch of 1970, which passed the SSB exam, went on to NDA, then went on to IME, then became officers and gentlemen. Out of a batch of 20 officers and gentlemen, we had 4 major generals, 1 lieutenant general, and 10 brigadiers. In one batch, I don't think any school has ever achieved that. So, and it was all because of the principal, and we all just really adored him, and his wife, who was, we used to call him Mater and Pater. So he was the hard end, she was the soft end. And in a military school, if there's no soft end, everybody would come out bent.
And I think that's an exception. That was it.
No, I went anyway. So I didn't go into advertising. Advertising is another accident. My life has been a series of accidents. Nothing deliberate, nothing planned ever.
So your first job interview was also very unique.
No, it wasn't. My first job interview was actually, I had 2 job interviews. One was I was walking around after finishing college and I was waiting for my results. I went to Bombay for the first time. And I was walking around Fountain and there was a sign outside a big institution said walk-in interviews for management trainees. And I was really hungry. I had no money. I was just walking around because I couldn't even take a bus. So I thought, chai, coffee, biscuit to milega yaar. Walk-in interview, chalo, good thing. There was a whole lot of guys, all suited, booted. I was in a pair of jeans and, luckily not chappals and t-shirt. And I sat there looking completely incongruous. And I was called in after a long time in the interview with this young American guy called, I still remember his name. His name was Mike Winters. And he was wearing a pair of jeans like I was and a t-shirt, unlike all the other suited, booted types who had gone for the interview. And he had his legs up on the table. I said, this is my kind of guy. So we started with a 5-minute interview and went on to everything except interview, but talked about life and hunting and shikar and games and football and cricket and everything under the sun. And it carried on for 1 hour. He said, great. Now that you passed your interview, you have 1 interview, final interview left. When are you getting your results? My heart sank. So I said, I thought he wanted, some major result. So I said, I'm not done very well in my exam, so I don't know. I'm very keen on getting my results. He said, I'll tell you what. He said, if you get a decent second class, we'll take you. And that is Citibank. Okay? So I was like ecstatic. Pappu pass ho gaya. I was like the Kalang in the family ever since I got thrown out of what you call kindergarten for flashing at the principal's daughter. I mean, they looked at me like some kind of a pervert. Pappu to kabhi nahi pass hoga. Neither is he going to get a job. And he also majored in military strategy. Who's going to give him a job here? Or wo bhi Amin ne join kiya. So when I said that I'm getting a job in a multinational bank, it was like the astrologer saying, what was the astrologer said to everybody? He said, "Tujhe bangla milega, Miss Mangla milegi, gaadi milegi, sabko milega." All that suddenly came true, And there was a lot of celebration and bartering of mithais. Anyway, I came back to Bombay to get my results via Bombay. And I said, let me see where the office is. So I go to Fountain and wherever I was being interviewed, I went there, it was the head office. And there was Darwan. I said, your trainee log kahan baithte? He says, वो basement में बैठते. So I said, मैं देख सकता हूँ? He said, हाँ देखो. So I went down the basement. There's this very brightly lit space with artificial lighting, tube light, and rows of really ugly people. Dressed exactly the same way. Bent over these old calculating machines, balancing ledgers. So I looked at this and I thought of my life in the future. Living there, no sun, no outdoors, lots of ugly people, including the women. But what do you call that? All very busily calculating calculators. And I'm dyslexic, so I can't count beyond 3 zeros. So I said, what am I going to do? So I said, and I'll die here. Because I'll come here before the sun rises and I'll leave here after the sun sets. And I'll never see my son again. You know, I've lived in the sun all my life. So I thought, one little voice in my head said, bhag. So I bhagoed and never turned up for my family interview. And God became the kalank of the family all over again. You know, ये साला कभी निकम्मा है, कभी कुछ नहीं करेगा जिंदगी. भाग गया नौकरी से. I was walking down Rattington Road, which is Jorba, and I see this garden full of very interesting young people sharing lunch on a winter morning. So I walk up and say, what do you guys do? He says, we advertise. I said, what's that? He said, we do brand building and we do brands like, Coca-Cola and Thumbs Up and stuff like that. So I said, wow. Can I get a job here? They said, we don't know, you better go and talk to the boss, he's sitting inside. So I go into the reception area, and in Delhi, this is 1971, Delhi. I see this receptionist, she gets up, having had finished her lunch, and she got up to wash her hands. She was wearing a mini skirt in 1971 Delhi, which was like asking for it. She had the best legs I've ever seen. And I still remember her name, Farida Pandey. And I thought, wow, I've come home. And I decided that's where I want to work. So I chatted up to her and I said, can I get to meet the boss? I want to work here. So she said, listen, you come tomorrow or the day after. Don't come today, he's in a very bad mood. So I said, why is he in a bad mood? He said, I don't know, but he's grumpy as hell and he's been shouting at everybody since the morning. And I suggest you don't come for a job interview today, तुझे नहीं मिलने वाला. तो कल. तो मैंने कहा नहीं मैं हूँ इधर यार कल कहाँ आऊँगा मैं ढूंढ के. I'll take my chances. I said, get me 5 minutes. So she goes in and pokes her head in and says, Jog, his name was Jog Chatterjee. Everybody used to call him Mr. Chatterjee. The reception with the mini skirt and the long legs called him Jog. So obviously she was the teacher's pet. And I had made the right contact. Because I chatted her up for 15 minutes before she actually said, Jog, there's a young man here who's very keen on meeting you for 5 minutes. Can you give him 5 minutes, please? And because she said it, he said, okay. So I walk in and there's the grumpy old man, about mid-50s, bald, reading a newspaper with an ad on it and making grumpy noises. That. And I realized that whatever he was reading, he didn't like, which is why he was reacting to it. And he had obviously been reading it in the morning and not getting over it. He didn't like it so much. So he looks at me and says, what do you want? So I said, sir, can I get a job with you? So he says, what do you know about advertising? I said, nothing. Then he looks at me. And then he throws the newspaper at me and says, what is because of this ad? And I see this full page color ad for Liberty shirts. It had just been launched. And it had the most provocative photograph on it, on the cover, with copy. And there was a guy's back with his shirt, which was checked. The checked red and yellow shirt. And there was a woman facing him. You could only see her eyes over his shoulder. She had her hands around his neck, and hanging from her hands was a pair of gold stilettos. Now, very fundamental question. In those days, advertising was done entirely in English. And all our sensibilities were in English. But when you think of them in Hindi, they were very provocative considering what was done in English. So when you look at that photograph and you see this girl's hand around his neck with her shoes in her hands, what is she? She's barefoot. In Hindi, what is she? Nange pair. What does barefoot mean in English? Freedom. What does nange pair mean in Hindi? Intimacy. Okay? So it was a very provocative, very intimate ad. And the copy was even more provocative. And it said, we met at a boring party. One thing led to another. I landed up at his pad. I loved his shirt. I started on the buttons. Tinker, tailor, soldier, sailor. Oops, no more buttons. Liberty shirts. Anything can happen. It blew me away. The ad just blew me away. I remember every single line of it till today. And I'm talking about 1971, when this ad actually came out. And he's looking grumpily at me and saying, so, what do you think? And I'm thinking in my head, नौकरी चाहिए तो मैं झूठ बोलूँगा और नौकरी नहीं चाहिए तो मैं सच बोलूँगा तो मैंने कहा screw it, let's tell him the truth. That's how I love it. He said, why? It's unethical, it's immoral, it's all the things that, that comes with patriarchy. So I said, no sir, it's not. It's a fabulous ad. It just provocates you into imagining. And imagination is the root of all marketing. 2 plus 2 can never be 4. You'll never sell shit if 2 plus 2 is 4. If 2 plus 2 is not 22, you will not sell anything. So he said, this is 2 plus 2 is 24. They're 22. He said, but it's unethical and immoral. Why should anybody publish? So I said, sir, this ad is meant for people between the ages of 18 and 25. You're 55. If you liked this ad, the product would fail. The fact that you didn't like this ad means it will be hugely successful because I love the ad and I'm 21 years old. Looked at me for a while, didn't say anything, made one humping sound. Hump. Farida! So Farida comes in, said, take him around the office. She escorted me around the office. So I thought, Pappu pass ho gaya. So it means that I've got the job. And she showed me a seat in front of the men's toilet and said, this is your chair. So that was his way of getting back at me. But once I got into advertising, I never looked back. I never thought of anything else. It was a challenge. Every day was a challenge. Every day was an imagination. Every day was an adventure. Every day was full of pitfalls. Every day was full of egos. And what my training time taught me is how to step very carefully on eggshells when you are dealing with clients' egos.
So that is the genesis of a lot of important props in your life, like stilettos and pythons and a particular wedding night.
Then we got a plum job to do, and that was a really big job. There were 2 big films that were done every year. There was Pepsi and there was Bombay Dime. And people used to actually wait for those films because they were full of, Bombay Dime had a Bond theme to it, and Pepsi was funny and irreverent. Yes. And we, in the advertising business, you have arrived only if you've done 1 or 2, or you even asked for to quote for 1 or 2. So suddenly out of the blue, we asked to quote for Bombay Dime. We couldn't believe our eyes. We said, "Arey, Bombay Dime film." And the agency had written a script that I embellished. And we made it a full-blown Bond film. Panthers, pythons, helicopter crashes, guns, roses, the works, So, Ardendo Bose was the Bond model for Bombay Dime in those days. And we wrote the script about this agent who tried to crack this gang of hoodlums, and he's chasing them all around. And his adventure. And we needed a python. We needed a lady with a python to be dancing in a nightclub, which is entry. And I couldn't find to hire a python. There was no way I could hire a python. So I was walking down Colaba Causeway, one day I saw this bhikari, this chap with a python wrapped around his neck, begging. So I said, kitna? So he says, kuch bhi de do. So I said, nahi, भिक्षा नहीं, ये python के लिए कितना? So he looks at me and said, python is not for sale. तो मैंने कहा नहीं यार मुझे python चाहिए, मैं और कुछ नहीं, तू बोल. So he thought about it and he says, 1200 रुपए. So I said, 1200 रुपए, ठीक है. He always fell down because he thought I'd run away. If I said, he said, 1200, what am I going to do with the python anyway? He didn't know what I had in mind for python. So I told my partner, I said, pay him 1200 rupees, let's take the python. So he takes the python off his neck and puts it around my neck. I'm very squeamish about snakes because I thought they were slimy, but he wasn't. He was absolutely bone dry, but he had muscles like you cannot imagine. And he was a baby python. He was only 12 feet long. They grow to 30 feet. So he put it on my neck, the python gently squeezed my neck and got comfortable. And he said, इसको अगर तुम कुछ खिलाओगे तो चिकन खिलाओ, पर ये खाएगा नहीं तुम्हें, you'll have to force it down his throat with a pencil. I said, क्यों? क्योंकि ये जात जो है कभी मरा हुआ गोश्त नहीं खाता, मार के खाती है. So unless you give him live meat to hunt, he's very reluctant to eat it. You'll have to force feed him, otherwise he'll starve. So we went off to office and baptized him Snoopy, because he used to keep wandering around the office, especially around the corner. So Snoopy the python became a part of my office, and he became a part of the film. And what happened was that we couldn't find the location, so the only location we found was the chairman of the advertising agency that handled Bombay Dye, Mr. Bal Munkar, legendary person. Okay, Mr. Bal Munkar had a house off Pedder Road, and in a place called Darbhanga Mansions, and he had a study which was like a collector's piece, and we needed a study for Bond, and it was exactly that. And we asked him, can we have that? He said, no, can't walk him out, you can't shoot him out. So we were stuck now, where the hell are we going to find something like that? So we went to the client and did choo 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 to her, to Mrs. Wadia, and said, ma'am, please ask him, he's your client also, and hame wo study dila do. So she said, I'll ask him, but I'm not guaranteeing anything. So she, of course, picks up the phone and says, Bal, can we let these boys have the study? So very reluctantly he had to, because she was his client. So he said, everybody has to clear out by 5:36. No, I will throw you out of my house after 6. We didn't know what the deadline was. Anyway, we took the deadline. It started early in the morning. Damn panther, which was supposed to come all the way from Chennai, got stuck at the forest block because they didn't have the right papers to transport him to Bombay. And he was wildlife and protected wildlife. So they took 6 hours. So the whole day went, we were waiting for the panther. This was happening, that was happening. And we had taken up Bal's bedroom as our main headquarters in terms of changing and props and everything else. Then somebody came and told us that you better clear out by 6 o'clock because he's getting married today. And he's bringing his new wife home for the first time after the ceremony, which is at 6:37. So if he sees anywhere here, he's going to use a shotgun on you. So we shat. He said, bloody hell, panther's not here. Anyway, finally the panther arrives at 4 o'clock in the evening. Now we are supposed to be shooting from 7 in the morning till 4 o'clock. Not a single shot has been taken without the panther because he's in country duty. So we sit the panther down. Then the boss comes out and says, I'm not going to go anywhere near the panther. Stitches his mouth up. So what they do in the industry, they stitch the mouth up of the panther. Not literally, they actually have holes in the mouth, like earring holes, and they put a rope through it. I said, not my life. I'm not going to make a panther go through that kind of torture. You do it exactly as you tame that panther. I'll touch him and show you. So I touched the panther. Then I said, okay, there was a small boy on the set. I said, you touch the panther. So the boy very reluctantly goes, touch the panther. I said, yeah, you bacha choo sakta hai, tu nahi choo sakta. He says, he got a little embarrassed. He says, I need a drink. before touching the tribe. You go and have a drink. He disappears. Disappears till 6:30. And we are looking for him all over. And we say, what do you call, somebody told us he deals usually in Jew, in Sun and Sand. So we send somebody in Jew to Sun and Sand, far enough. He's there, 6 streets down. So we drag him there, slightly inebriated, and make him sit there and do the shot with the panther. By this time, we had to clear out of Balmunkar's bedroom. So we haven't taken the python shot yet. So we cleared out his bedroom, and Balmunkar arrives with his newly wedded wife, and sees his house in a shambles. There's a panther on its settee. There's a python somewhere in the house. There are lots of people milling around. There's a girl in a bikini hanging around doing some kind of a thing. And he is flabbergasted, and he is epileptic. And the agency lady who was with us was so scared she'd lose her job. She said, sorry, we'll keep very quiet. So I go up to him and say, sir, we haven't finished. And everything got delayed. And we promise you, we'll talk in whispers, we'll walk on our toes. You won't hear a sound, you please go into your bedroom and enjoy yourself, and we will not disturb you. And he was about to kick us out when the new wife turned and said, let them. So he actually, in her favor, he let us. He locked the door, and we carried on with the shooting on tiptoes. At 2 in the morning, we realized the python is missing because we need him for the shot. And we're looking for him all over the place. And one trainee comes up to me and says, last I saw him was Mr. Munkar's room. We said, fucked. Mr. Munkar is enjoying his nuptial delights, and the python is inside his room. And we need the damn python to finish the shoot, and we are hanging around outside. Now what do we do? So we pick straws. And Meera Nair, who's the lady from the agency, picks the shortest straw. So she has to knock on his door and wake him up and tell him to return the python. So she knocks very gently. Knock, knock. Mr. Bal. Knock, knock. Mr. Bal. Not a chew out of anything. So I push her aside, bang the door and said, Bal! There's some scrambling around in the bedroom, and the door is flung open. And he's standing there like a Nero with a bedsheet wrapped around him, his hair on straight, he had longish curly hair. And looking at me with fierce eyes, with the lady in the bedroom with a bedsheet covering up to her neck, and looking out to see what the hell's going on. I said, Bal, we are deep shit. Please. We've forgotten a prop in your room. We'll just come for 2 minutes and pick the prop up and bring it out. What prop? We dare not tell him it's a python. So no, he said, I'll do it. No, Bal, you won't recognize it. You won't know what it is. It's a very different kind of prop. So we have to come and identify it and take it. So in the meantime, while I was engaging, the trainee went into the room and started looking for all over the place with the damn python. No python. So surely leaves us, and we all go looking. He's also looking. What is these guys looking for? One guy goes to the bathroom and finds Snoopy wrapped around the commode because it's the coolest place in the house. And he said, I found him. Bal hears him. He says, Sala, mera nuptial delights ka night. Or one him is hiding in my bathroom. So he leaps into the bathroom and screeches to halt, seeing this little snake wrapped around the commode, looking up at us saying, what's the matter with you guys? Why are you so excited? And we all try to unwrap him from the commode, and Bal looks at him and he goes into an epileptic fit. I thought he was going to have a heart attack. And he looks at me and he says, supposing I wanted to take a leak in the middle of the night, and this son of a bitch was hungry. And left it at that. So, that was a balloon. Sorry, that is legendary.
Wow, that's so easy.
We finished the shoot, by the way. I should do a podcast in this. Huh? Sounds quite interesting.
Now, one endearing feature of the book was
you know, in the creative world, there's always, this maramari of getting credit for, for things that they've not done. But very interestingly, you've given credit to the original agency people who come out with those one-liners in your Pepsi ads, etc., etc. So how did this happen? And case in point, of course, is Anuja Chauhan.
See, Anuja Chauhan was a young copywriter who actually came into force totally again by accident. She was a trainee and wanted to a meeting which was gloomy and fiery because we had lost, Pepsi had lost the rights of the World Cup, the Cricket World Cup, to Coke for the first time. And the writing was on the wall, "Ab tumhara kya hoga, Kalia?" Because you lost the biggest event on the calendar, on the sports calendar. And the new Coke, which has just come in with deep pockets, has outbid you. So everybody is going to hardly saying, now what do we do? And there was this meeting with this trainee, Anuja Chauhan, sitting there with her feet up on the chair, very cute, looking very interestedly at this argument that was going on, is what do we do now? And she turned on and piped up in the middle of the meeting, uncalled for, and said, but why should we be the official drink of the World Cup? Why can't we be the unofficial drink of the World Cup? So everybody looked at her like she was some sort of a, leper and said, trainees are meant to be seen, not heard. Shut up. And carried on with the meeting. In the meantime, credit to the client, Vibha Rishi, who after half an hour of bickering around, turned around and said, one sec, let's go back. Anuja, what did you mean by saying unofficial sponsors of the World Cup? So Anuja said, there's 60,000 people in the stadium. There's 60 lakh people outside the stadium. Why can't we be representing the people outside the stadium than inside the stadium? So you're official only inside the stadium. You're unofficial outside the stadium. So nothing official about it was the line. And it wiped Coke off the map. And when that campaign came to be, Anuja Chauhan, the trainee who was supposed to keep her trap shut and be seen and not heard, became a star. But nobody gave her credit, not even at the awards. Because when the campaign got the award as Best Campaign of the Year, she had flown down from Delhi to Bombay for the award. And the creative head of HT8 Bombay got up and took the award. And we were all sitting in a flank and booed him. So I said, this is an anomaly which we must correct because in our business, all the seniors grab the award, all the juniors who are actually responsible for the work never get credit. So we made sure that Anuja not only got credit, but became the star that she became because she was absolutely awesome. And while she and me and Vibha were there for the Pepsi thing, the Pepsi campaigns were magical. Every single year, we created magic because they were spontaneous, they were irreverent, they were young, and they were anti-establishment.
Now in those days, the ad films were 60 seconds, 90 seconds. Now today, people come out with 90-second ads, they don't call it ad, they call it brand films. Today it is about 5 seconds, 4 seconds, reels.
No, if you want to buy media in the mainstream media, then you can't afford more than 10, 15, 20 seconds. But on social media, you can afford 3 minutes. It doesn't cost you that much at all. So most of your so-called brand building films, not the 2 plus 2 is equal to 4 films, but the 2 plus 2 is equal to 22 films. Like one of the few guys who actually practices that today is Chrome Films. His name is Amit Sharma. And he's the guy who directed Badhai Ho, if you remember him. But he has made some outstanding ads. Like the Google ad with the guy in Delhi who's looking for his friend from Pakistan and they've been separated for some 60 odd years and his gunrotor finds him on Google and invites him to his 70th birthday. It was such an amazing film in terms of its storytelling, in terms of its emotional contact, and in terms of the fact that we were at the height of our enmity with Pakistan. So as public opinion was concerned, Pakistan was bad guys. But when they saw the film, there was not a single wet eye in the room. And that is the power of storytelling in advertising. That is the real power. It makes you forget for that moment what your sthiti is. It makes you imagine. The power to create an imaginative spark in your head is what good advertising is really all about.
Now, in the book also you mentioned about difference between feature film, long film direction or creation versus short film creation, and there's some mention about one of your clients giving an award to a feature film director to make a film, and he said no, they don't understand short films. How do you pack whatever you want to say, a message in 30, 60, 90 seconds?
See, ad filmmaker, from a filmmaker, you can be a filmmaker, if you have 2 hours to tell a story, you can be flabby. And you can go round and round and repeat yourself like a lot of our feature films do. There are very few feature films that are actually tight. And they're written for the thing. They write them for 3 hours. They shoot them for 3 hours. And they edit them to 2 hours. So obviously there's no cohesion in the storytelling, because the large chunks of the story which you removed arbitrarily in the table, because you cannot have a 3-hour film. You can't distribute it. You can't show it in a theatre. So because it's arbit, and because you don't have the discipline of thinking 1.5 hours, of writing 1.5 hours, and shooting 1.5 hours, which is why today the best filmmakers in the business of filmmaking are ex-ad filmmakers. Why? Because ex-ad filmmakers have a 30-second window. In 30 seconds you have to tell a story to engage. In 30 seconds you have to make your brand into a hero. In 30 seconds you have to create a persona for your brand which you will take away. And in 30 seconds, you are after 2 months of watching that ad, you should remember the name of the brand, not the name of the actor. Now that's the challenge in front of you. So what happens is that you become akin to a polisher of diamonds. So anybody can hack a diamond, but to polish every single facet of it so that it actually, the brilliance of the diamond is shown, is that you're not really a diamond cutter, you're a diamond polisher. But the polisher is the one that brings out the facets of the diamond as economically as possible. So tomorrow when a diamond sparkles, it's because some guy somewhere who's very adept at his craft to make a 30-second story and convince you that it's real and make you forget your reality and touch your life in an indelible manner. That is who he is. That's what advertising, filmmaking is really all about. It's constantly honing your skill to be able to shorten the time of communication without disengaging. You have to be constantly engaged. You have to find all kinds of ways to actually compress time. And the greatest ability of a filmmaker, regardless of whether he's a feature filmmaker or an ad filmmaker, is the capacity to compress time without you all noticing it. How do you take an epic, like any of the epics that you see, Dr. Zhivago, where it's a 20-year-long story, and compress it into 2 hours? That's the craft.
And yet in those 30 seconds you always push the envelope. How did you manage to take these risks?
It is like this. When I was very young and I took myself very seriously, I realized that nobody else took me seriously because I took myself seriously. And so you realize in life that when you take yourself very seriously as a human being, people laugh at you behind your back because they think you're a pompous, opinionated ass. Okay? And that is of all successful and unsuccessful. It doesn't matter how successful you are. If you're a pompous, opinionated ass, people will laugh at you behind your back. So I learned to laugh at myself. So I learned that the best jokes are the ones that you make yourself, because you disarm everybody. You open them up for the next move. And they're ready to accept whatever you say to them because you have opened yourself up by laughing at yourself. And so they become as vulnerable as you make yourself. So always remember, people protect their vulnerability and they won't let you in. Whether you're an advertising person, whether you're an entertainment person, it doesn't matter. Whether you're a salesman, whatever. When you open yourself to vulnerability and say, and what you see is what you get, and I'm willing to laugh at myself, they also open a small chink of their vulnerability to let you into their lives. That is called engagement. So if you want to engage with an audience, you have to be very, very fearless about yourself and not be ashamed of anything that you've done. If you can manage that, you can be as politically incorrect as I am. Because I can get away with murder on national television without being bumped off or having an ED raid on me. So to be able to do that, you have to fox everybody by saying, "Ye asli bol rahe hai ki mazak kar rahe hai?" The fact is that mazak mein hi asli hai.
Talking of vulnerability, the great, unfortunately late Shane Warne also showed this side of vulnerability when he went into it.
Shane Warne was hilarious. He was the funniest character I've ever met and extremely childlike because ever since he became a star cricketer, he has never had to do anything for himself except feed himself with his hand or knife and fork or whatever and perform the act of sex. But otherwise, everything was done for him. Okay? So he's never used to doing things like mundane things like getting visas and stuff like that. So we're shooting a Shane Warne, he's flying in from Australia. We're shooting a Carl Hooper who's flown in from West Indies and Sachin Tendulkar. And we've got this huge set of a store. And we're all waiting, everybody's on time except Shane Warne. And he disappeared. We talked to travel agent, he left from Perth or wherever he's from. And we talked to the hotel, he said, "He hasn't arrived." We talked to his manager, they said, "We don't know where he is." And we are waiting in the set, with everybody waiting for Shane Warne. And about 11 in the morning, when we are about to actually collapse with nervous tension, I get a call from a strange voice which says, "Are you Prahlad Kakkad?" I said, "Yes." He says, "Do you know a man called Shane Warne?" I said, "Who doesn't?" He says, "Where is he?" He says, "Shane Warne is sitting in front of me. I am at the immigration office in the airport. He has tried to enter this country without a visa. And we are deporting him." So I said, no, don't deport him. Please, we've got a set static. You please let him into 24 hours. I'll take personal guarantee. I'll do whatever you want. Kuch bhi dunga tu. You know, you just let him out for 24 hours under escort if you want. You know, he said, "Nothing doing. We're going to export him." We started pulling strings. Everybody up to the Home Ministry. And said, "Yaar, boss, usko 20 ghante liye chhod do. We promise to escort him back to the airport and send him back." But he's Shane Warne. He's not some lallu. He's not going to want to be illegal immigrant in India just because he's a leg spinner. So we asked him, Mr. Shane, how can you come into India without a visa? He said, "I didn't think I needed anything because when I was in Australia, they were too busy asking for autographs to look at my immigration. And so they just left me through. And here your chaps don't know who I am properly, you know, so they had not let me through. And they said, "I don't have a visa." What the hell is that? I never had a visa in my life. I said, "Of course you had a visa, Shane. Somebody else did it for you." He said, "Well, this time I was coming on my own, so I didn't ask anybody to do it." So that's Shane Warne for you. And we made that amazing film where Sachin loses his memory and Shane Warne tells him, "You're a cook in Honolulu." And tries to put him onto a plane and pack him off before the World Cup so that the Indian team is deprived of his services. You remember that Pepsi film?
I was reading up, and in one of your recent interviews a couple of months ago, you lamented at the nature of quality standards of current advertising. Why is that so?
You know, I think advertising, like everything else in life, is cyclic. It has an upward cycle and it has a downward cycle. And I think we're right now on a downward cycle because, frankly, the suits have taken over advertising. See, in advertising is divided into three kinds of people. Suits, yahoos like me, and clients. Now, clients, also depending on clients' briefs to the agency, is the kind of, the brief determines the kind of advertising you get, frankly. So you have clients like Vivarishi, you have clients like Sunil Alag, you have clients like T.T. Jaggu, who actually, you have clients like Mr. Kurian, Dr. Kurian from Amul, who actually said, this is not my job. This is your job. You give me a campaign which you think is right for my product. If it works, you'll get the job back. If it doesn't work, I'll sack you. But I'm not going to turn on and put my thumb in print on your work because then you can hide behind it and say, but you approved it and it bombed. It bombed because I asked you as professionals to give me a brand campaign which will work and you failed. You sacked. So in our time, that's how clients reacted. This is my product. This is what it costs. This is who my target audience is. Now give me a great a campaign which can last for more than 1 year. I don't want a campaign that ends in 1 year. I want a campaign that I can continue with for 5 years at least. That's what I'm paying you for. But if you give me a turkey, I'll sack you. And don't look to me for approval. Because I ain't giving you that little cover. I'm not a condom. So there's no protection from saying, but you said. And yet the clients with egos who insist on running their own campaign badly. And when the campaigns are bad, they look for a scapegoat to find. Because they're never real enough to take the call or take the blame or take it on the chin, as you might call it. Because their egos are far larger than that. So they have to find a scapegoat. So you always find the agency or you find the producer or you find the director of the ad to find as a scapegoat. But he's doing exactly what he's told to do. Unless he's some idiot like me who decides to do what he wants to do, damn the client. Because I turn around and say, at the end of it, we are both in it together, baby. It's not just my job, it's also yours. Why? Because in our system, we take a 50% advance. Okay? And then you listen to whatever they have to say and all the bullshit that they come up with in terms of research and keep nodding your mundi and say, yes, 3 batchful, and go off and do exactly what you know, how to do best. Okay? Now, not too many people have the courage of that conviction because they're dying to get that 50% balance back. If you can walk away from 50% of the balance, you're free. You're free to take a call. And you screwed the client because he's minus 50%. So where the hell is he going to find another producer to do the same job for 50% of the budget because 50% is gone? So if you can walk away from your profit or more than your profit because you believe so implicitly that what you are suggesting to them is right and they're not buying it, then you do it. In the beginning, before I had any credibility in the business, I shot 2 films. Every film that I shot twice. I shot it with their way and I shot it my way. And then when I showed them their film, and they all looked very uncomfortable because obviously it was shit. And they said, then they didn't tell me what's wrong. Isme dum nahi hai. What do you mean by that? Huh? You give me a brief, you give me a script, you say the research, I shoot it exactly as per your storyboard, and then you turn around and say, dum nahi hai. Fine. So मैं तुम्हें आपको एक दूसरी फिल्म दिखाता हूँ जिसमें दम है. And I show them my version. And guess what they do? Everybody here in the room knows exactly what they would do. but I don't know whether you will get it. What do they do? When I show them both versions, one version is working, one version is not. What do they do? Come on guys, there are lots of clients sitting here. No. They say take a little bit of this and take a little bit of that and made a third version. So they don't do space. So that is the time when you have to stand, hold fast. Say, no, I think you take this or you take this. There's no in between. Or pay me double the amount that you agreed to and buy the film of me. Then you do what you want. So you become very unpopular. I was very unpopular with clients and agencies. Trust me. And they gave me work which was the toughest work, which was the one that they knew had take the mickey out of you to make them work. Because they waited for me to crash and burn. They would love it if the film bombed. But they never got the chance. Guess why? Because we realized internally that the film would bomb. So guess what we did? We reshot it at our cost, the way we wanted to, so it wouldn't bomb. But you have to put your money where your mouth is. And today, I'm afraid, I don't see any people who are that convinced about their own ability, their own gut, their own instinct, their own professionalism to be able to walk away from 50% of the advance or to turn around and reshoot the film at their cost. Or shoot 2 films simultaneously. That's the difference. Yes. It's all about the capacity to be able to walk away. Are you confident enough to walk away from a contract and take a loss? No, that's business. The business of business is risk. The business of business is not looking for a package. So all your MBA students here, the moment you finish your third year, all you're waiting for is campus placement. Forget it. Go out and open a dhaba.
We are ahead of time, so we're wrapping up last couple of things. One more thing that comes again and again in the book is reference to Mr. Murphy.
Mr. Murphy, how many of you deal with Murphy and recognize it? You see, everybody in this room has to deal with Murphy. Whether it's love affair, whether it's dealing with your husband, whether it's dealing with your children, whether it's dealing with business, whether it's dealing with your colleagues, whether it's dealing with your boss. Nothing goes as per plan. Nothing ever goes as you have planned it to go. Because there is a gargoyle plucked from VT station, sitting on your shoulder, waiting for the first opportunity to piss into your ear. Sounds better in Hindi. Kandhe pe baith ke kaan mein mutha hai. So that is Murphy. If anything can go wrong, it will go wrong. So how do you deal with Murphy? The beginnings of dealing with Murphy is to admit that Murphy exists. Okay? In my corner of my office, we had Ganpati and we had Murphy on the other side. Okay? And we had a big pota where we used to every day log what Murphy did to us and in what position. Okay? So that we realized that Murphy is incredible. He never repeats the same position twice. He's so original. Every time he screws you in a different position. So you can't completely anticipate what he's going to do. But to know that he exists and tick all the boxes and then say, now that is over. Now my job starts. And what is your job? It's to anticipate what can go wrong. When you've ticked all the boxes, your job hasn't completed. You've ticked the boxes, that's mundane, that's okay. Anybody can do that. Even a parent can do that. Why do I need an executive with imagination and with anticipation? It's all about anticipation. अगर वो ये करेगा तो मैं ये करूँगा, अगर मैं ये भी वो करेगा तो मैं ये भी कर सकता हूँ. If you don't have plan B, plan C, plan D in your head, then you're caught flat-footed, you lose a lot of money. If at least you've thought out plan B, plan C, plan D, you're halfway home. Because then Murphy cannot ruin you. He can only make you better. So Murphy is somebody who we live with. My book is full of Murphy. And how we dealt with him sometimes and how we succumbed to him sometimes. So we tried many ways to appease Murphy, other than anticipation. We tried sacrificing virgins to him, then we ran out of virgins. Then we invented a new form of virgin, which was called the born-again virgin. So we could recycle them. But Murphy is relentless. Trust me. You can't fob him off.
Lovely. So, final few rapid questions.
Yes.
Fire round and
No, why did you throw it open to the house?
after that. Before you. If not a filmmaker, what would you have done?
It's there in my resume, which Muhammad Khan wrote. Sperm donor,
That's why I avoided that in my profile.
horse breeder, tea planter,
Hat collector.
hat collector, no, that I still do.
Okay.
Scuba diving instructor, which I still am. What else?
Okay.
No, but one thing which you haven't asked me is that who, out of all your mentors, who was my greatest mentor who shaped my life? Who actually reshaped my life? Anybody guess?
Don't stop there.
The ocean. When I got introduced to the ocean, I realized that it was one of the most powerful forces on earth, and I was nothing but a tadpole. It smashed my ego, it gave me humility, and gave me the power to unlearn to be able to learn. And when I came in touch with the ocean, which I did a lot of times because I opened a scuba diving school, the first one in India, against everybody's advice and odds. It's still the oldest scuba diving school in India. It's called Lakadives. And we moved it from the Lakshadweep, where it was named, to the Andamans, where it still exists in a place called Chidiya Tapu. It is 25 years old. We founded it 25 years ago. And since then, my greatest mentor has been returning to the ocean all the time and learning new things from it. Learning how to survive, learning how to exist, learning how to celebrate, learning how to respect nature. So the two things in nature that demand respect are the mountains and the ocean. And both of them teach you the same lessons. And if you ever decide to encounter a hobby or something to do with either the mountains or the ocean, it will change your life. It will change your life so drastically that the person who went into the water and the person who emerges from the water are two different people. Their sensibilities are different. The whole approach to life is different.
In your long career, the best agency or agency person you remember?
I've had lots of good agencies. See, the good agency is one that looked at me and said that तूने वैसे भी वो जो करना जो तू चाहता है तो कर. They were the best, and they said take the team along with you, so that they also learn something of what you call instinct. Because if you are an advertising animal, there is a cumulative experience that you have, which is not logical, nor is it chronological. Okay, it is instinct. It is left side brain, right side brain. So if a client wants 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, you can nod your money and say you'll get it. And give him 22. Or a derivative of that. It's dangerous also. Because clients turn around and say, yeah, ye to had ho gayi. This is not what I wanted. You wanted mediocrity because you're comfortable in it. Anything that is beyond mediocrity is always going to be controversial. It is always going to attract more attention than mediocrity does. Mediocrity is fabulous because you are like a pig in a sty. You wallow in it. So, the moment you make 4 into 6 into 8 into 10 into 12, you are adding a value. So always remember in terms of parenting, one of the biggest lessons in parenting is, don't teach your children that success comes with money because they'll never be happy in their lives. Teach them how to add value because money follows value. And value is countable. It's accountable. You can put it on your account. You can put your name on it. You'll go to the grave with it. Piyush Pandey, for everything that he's done in his life, he's known for a film that he made in his trainee days, which was for Cadbury's. Where the girl runs onto the cricket field, dances, gives the guy a Cadbury thing. He had to fight everybody for that. He had to fight the client, he had to fight his agency, he had to fight the fact that he wanted to do the Hindi. In those days, Hindi wasn't fashionable. It was considered down market. The client, the board of directors of Cadbury were all Goras. And you know why they allowed him to do the film? Under duress? Because he got up and resigned. As a trainee, he got up and said, screw you. You don't respect my work. You don't respect my professionalism. You don't respect my opinion. I will not work for you. That was the turning point in his life. The ability to walk away.
Great. Any audience questions?
What? No questions? Guys? That's passe. You should have asked me how did I manage to make the walk from the library to the ladies' waiting room to talk to the girls when I was in college when it was taboo. That was the journey. Believe me, the college stopped in its tracks. Even the staff members were leaning out the windows to see whether I'd chicken out of the walk. Every step that I took got heavier because I was under so much observation.
And are the lotas on the table a reference to the lota story in the hotel when you checked in?
That's right. Oh, that. You know, as Indians, you will sympathize with me totally because all these 5-star hotels were designed by foreigners. For foreigners. Until the foreigners went broke and the Indians started making money. So Indians started going to 5-star hotels, including somebody like me who I never paid for it, somebody else paid for it, but I went to 5-star hotels. And I found to my great unhappiness and dismay that there was no way to wash your ass. There were the 3 rolls of different flavored toilet paper, like condoms. One was pink, one was yellow, one was blue, one had orange smell in it, one had lavender, one had something else. But no water. Now, as Indians, you know that if you don't wash your backside with water, you don't feel good about yourself. You walk around slightly with your legs apart because you feel unclean. So I had to ask them. I said, "Yaar, tu ek magga to de na." And then why should I have to take the magga and then walk with my legs apart to the basin, which is like 10 yards away, fill it with bloody water, come back, and if I need a refill, I have to do the whole exercise again. I think it was really humiliating. You know? So I had to make a noise in the reception. So I should turn around and ask the duty manager, says, "Do you wash or do you wipe?" So he said, "What do you mean, sir?" I said, "I'm doing a survey on all the 5-star hotels of this country to see whether they're India friendly or they're not. Because if you're a viper, you're a gora at heart. Or what they call a coconut. Brown on the outside, white on the inside. With a red rash on his arse. That's a locality.
This is a question here. I just wanted to check with you in case you want to turn the clock back and live your life again. Would you do anything differently?
I doubt it.
Any campaign differently?
Yes, maybe a couple of campaigns differently. Because sometimes I did succumb to the money and decided to listen to the client. And then, but I had to go through amnesia. And believe me, to go through amnesia deliberately is one of the most difficult things in the world. I had to go through amnesia to pretend that I didn't make the film. And if you repeated it about 10,000 times, it became a part of your DNA. Then I go through a lie detector test and said, "Ye maine nahi kiya." But every time you see a turkey, every time you see a job that you have not given your 100% to, and it is not the way you want it to be, believe me, it doesn't improve with age. It becomes worse and worse. Every time you see it, you cringe. It's cringeworthy. And to be able to get out of that whole sense of guilt and conditioning, you have to pretend that you didn't make it. And that's not easy.
There's a question there. Yeah, okay.
When will you find out that your way, and how will you find out that your way to make ads?
I did. I discovered it on the way. I thought I was going to breed horses. I was going to be a tree gardener. I was going to be an outdoor liver. My grandmother changed all that and said, "No, you have to graduate." And then turned around and celebrated that Pappu pass ho gaya kyunki bank ka job mil gaya usko. So I bhaga wahan se. And I wandered into advertising because the receptionist was so good looking.
Okay, here's a question, this side. Yeah. Hi, Mangal. So, in the current times when AI is becoming so very competitive, where the advertisements in the future can become AI generated, how do you see the man-made advertisements figuring out the way forward?
I'll give you an example. At heart, all human beings are animals. And they evolved into human beings and to become worse than animals. Why do they become worse than animals? Because the animal instinct is so strong for survival that it can make out in the wild which mushroom is poisonous, which one is not. Human beings cannot do that unless they actually know about mushrooms. They know which fruit is edible, which is not. They know which snake is poisonous, which is not. We don't. We hate snakes all around because we think all of them are poisonous. Okay? We've lost that ability. But somewhere in your DNA is the ability to make out what is real and what is synthetic. And I'll give you an example. We were shooting ice cream films back to back. And it was hell on earth. Because ice creams have a shelf life of 4 seconds under lights before they start running all over the place. And you have 4 seconds to shoot the damn ice cream when you scrape it and put it into a cone or whatever shape you want it. And we wasted tons of ice cream in getting the right shot. So we decided that let's find an alternative for ice cream. We found the best alternative was mashed potatoes. Because when you color mashed potatoes, when you show them visually, they look exactly like ice cream and you can hang on to them for half an hour, they don't melt. We shot our commercials with mashed potatoes, the clients loved them, we loved them, everybody loved them, not a single ice cream sold. Then we realized two things. There are two lessons we learned from that. One was when you crave for an ice cream, are you looking for food or are you looking for drink? You want an ice cream because you're thirsty, not because you're hungry. Okay, rationally it's a solid. So you think rationally I should be hungry to want to crave an ice cream. No! You are thirsty, you crave an ice cream. Therefore, when you crave an ice cream, what do you visualize in your mind's eye? The quality of melt. If the ice cream is solid as rock, you will not touch it. If the ice cream is melty and gooey, you will want it with as much of your life as you want. So you are competing against soft drinks. You're not competing against hot dogs. One. Secondly, people instinctively knew that the mashed potato was synthetic and not real. They knew. They didn't know rationally, but they knew intuitively. That's why they never went and bought the ice cream. Okay, so these two lessons we learned. So when we talk about AI has to learn to be imperfect to succeed. Because no human being is perfect. You have to be imperfect to be real. Every single ruby that you get out of Burma is flawed, which is why you know it's real. Every single ruby that you get out of Bangkok is artificially made because it's perfect. That's how you judge a ruby. So you know intuitively from your animal side that ye nakli hai or ye asli hai. So it's not a matter of perfection. Perfection is sterile. AI is perfect. And which is why it has a long way to go to learn how to make itself imperfect. It has to be deliberate. With human beings, it's inadvertent. We are inadvertently non-perfect. Because we are non-perfect, we recognize imperfection. Do you have enough time? There's a story, a Zen story. Yeah, okay, I'll tell you a Zen story. There was an old Japanese Zen master in America, in California, where all these yoga, Zen, all these make lots of money. And he had lots of little dojos or ryos where he was teaching Zen. And Zen is something like Indian philosophy. It is imperfect. There's no black and white. It's all a shade of grey. It's all a matter of interpretation. Okay? So when you are a Caucasian, when you're white, you are brought up with a knowledge of only black and white, right and wrong. There are no shades of grey. So that's why they're so unforgiving about anybody else other than themselves, because it's either right or it's either wrong. There's no middle ground. And Zen is all about middle ground. So there was a student of this guy, brilliant American boy, who was ahead of his class and learnt everything much faster than anybody else. And one day the teacher decided that he was too old now to teach anymore, and he was going to retire to a shrine and wait for his death. So he left everything, went back to Kyoto, went to the mountains and retired and cut himself off from the rest of the world in a little monastery. This guy stopped learning. This guy suddenly felt that his progress in learning about the Zen philosophy had suddenly stumbled. And he pined for his master. So finally he bought himself a ticket, went to Kyoto, tracked the master down, went to his little monastery and said, "Master, I need you." So the master said, "What the hell are you doing here? I mean, I didn't invite you here. Why are you in my space?" So he said, "I've come to you because I've stopped learning." So he said, "You haven't stopped learning. You have to learn to digest what you've learned before you can digest any more. So it takes time. You have to have patience. Go away." He said, "No, I want to spend some time with you. I want to go back to the learning curve. It's like a writer's wrist or thumb or elbow or whatever you call it. So I've reached a blank." So he insisted on staying with the master, much to the master's unhappiness. He was really upset that his space was invaded. So one day he tells him, "Listen, you either leave or I'll leave." So the student says, "Master, do me a favor. Give me a test. If I pass the test, you will allow me to spend 6 months with you. If I fail the test, I will go away by myself." So the master said, "One condition. You will not ask me why you failed the test. If I've decided you failed, you failed. You'll have to accept that." So he said, "Accept it." So he says, there was a long gravel path to the monastery. On either side, there were cherry blossom trees in full blossom. And there was a path in the middle with little round river pebbles. He said, sweep the path. He says, what? He said, sweep the path. He said, that my test? He said, yes. So he started, woke up at dawn, swept the path, realized that he'd have to sweep his footprints away, so he had to sweep backwards. He had to walk backwards, sweeping in concentric circles. And the path was perfect and spotless. And he goes to the master in the evening and says, Master, see the path. And the master looks at the path, looks very sad and says, I'm sorry, but you have failed. Now go away. So he said, but why should I fail? Everything is perfect. So he said, no, you failed, you go away. So he said, no, let me do it again. I promise I'll go away. So master succumbs and says, do it again. Next day, he matches the pebbles, he matches the strokes, he matches everything. So that the path is a reflection of just pristineness. And he comes to the master and says, look at it now. She says, you failed. So he says, tell me why I failed. She said, that wasn't the deal. So he said, why? He says, because if I tell you why you failed, all that you have learnt will be null and void. You'll have to start from scratch, from zero. Are you ready to do that? He said, yes. So the master says, I'll show you. I won't tell you. He walks on the side of the path to the middle of the path where the cherry blossom is in full bloom, shakes the cherry blossom tree, lets the blossom fall on the perfect path, making it imperfect, and thus reflecting its beauty. So nothing is perfect without it being balanced by imperfection.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, for last lecture.
As always, something.
Right, there are no more controversial questions, you guys. Are you all Fergusonians or are you outsiders? How many Fergusonians are there? No, this is my lot. We broke all the rules. I mean, this is all the Kandos committed. Ashok Gune, who was on the stage during a musical interlude, the first English play that ever was done. And it was done for the simple reason that all of us who actually initiated the play wanted to meet all the pretty girls in the college, and that's the only legitimate way we could do it. And after a second year, we found another legitimate way to do it. And that was, we went to the Film Institute, we did a very short course on film appreciation with a man called Satish Bhadur. And we got him to come and lecture for us once a week here for our students. And I went to the principal and I told him, I said, sir, we'd like to start a film club. And he said, very good idea. Thought, sudhar rahe hain log, no, sab badmash. So he gave us permission to start a society called Critique. And guess who was the head of the society? There were four of us. There was Uday Barauke sitting right there, Ashok Gune, Vijay Parachme, who I don't think is arrived, and me. And we kept the membership only to good-looking women. No guy got in even sideways. So there has to be motivation, you know. So I believe you guys have turned from a vegetarian college into a non-vegetarian one. I mean philosophically. Thank you. Oh wow, my favorite. So I'm getting a book about Al Pacino, my favorite, who was another bad boy of the film world. And if you read his history, it'd be quite fascinating. And Al Pacino almost didn't get the Godfather role because the producers and the studio turned around and said he looks like a spick. He looks like a refugee. Doesn't look like, no, Corleone's son. But he got it, and the rest is history.
Dr. Shikha Jain, Director of IMDR.
trust me, the Techno Education Society is a very haloed institution and very respectable. And one of the founders of the Techno Education Society, which was Nana Sahib Suru, used to call his nephew or grandnephew, Ashok Gune, Chiranjeev, with sarcasm. And he used to call me the sidekick of the Chiranjeev. So to be now recognized by the same society as having arrived, I think I've done enough in my life to actually maybe deserve it. I'm not too sure. You remember? He said, and Lali is his daughter. And he was a very, very great educationist in his own right. And he had a great sense of humor, and he was very, very sarcastic with us. Because Ashok used to play the drums loudly in the afternoon and disturb his sleep, I think. He said, what is your future? Thank you very much. Wow, what is this? Not allowed. Highly diabetic.
And this is Rishikesh. He runs his own perfumery. Oh, wow.
That I can do it. I can hide my body odor. You know, guys, a secret to a little bit of success is that when you look at women and they think that they are looking at your dollars or your six-pack or the size of your wallet, forget it. They are attracted to you because of your body odor. If you smell bad, you're a no-no. So that's why deos have become so popular suddenly. Because the guys have realized that if they mask their really bad body odor with deos, they might just work it out.
On the last day, you mentioned about taking care of the environment. So you will plant a tree on your behalf.
Please.
And you already planted that and
Yes.
see message every time.
What tree is it?
Between the lines. In the Bhavani village of MP.
Huh.
We planted the native trees which are native to MP.
Which is
We planted 5 trees in your name.
The native trees to MP is what they all get drunk on. It's called Mahua.
Next time you come here,
To plant a Mahua tree and
I will
yeah.
So there is a between line forest and
Amazing.
QR code.
Yes.
Giving you live location. We'll take care of these trees for the next 3 years and ensure that the trees survive and
My wife and me are part of the Isha Foundation for yoga, and we have a program there called the tree planting program. And they planted in Tamil Nadu itself something like 15 million trees to date and looked after them for 3 years and made them into forests. The program is called Green Hands, in case any of you wish to, volunteer for it.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, Pranab Thakkar.
I want you to give a big hand to my wife. Please stand up, Mitali. Because if she hadn't whipped my ass during COVID to write the book, it would never have been written. Read my foreword is dedicated to her. And it says that now that the genie is out of the bottle, we all have to live with it.
No, he's the talker, as you guys have clearly figured out. So I just wanted to thank you all for inviting Prahlad for this. Back to his alma mater. It means a lot to him, I know, even though he's not mentioned it. I know it means a lot to him because every time we come to Pune and we pass by Ferguson College, he always points it out to me and the kids whenever we are together. So thank you once again.
And thank you all for staying back. I know this is perhaps the longest Between the Lines session we've had, but it could have gone for longer. Thank you once again, and happy Diwali to all of you. Thank you.